Good evening, everyone. Like I said the other day, I'm taking a few days to talk about the many things going on in the Kings School District. Today, I'm focusing on last week's prom. On a side note, not to brag or anything, but I can still fit into my earrings from my prom 20 years ago. First, I'm so happy that this got to happen this year, despite the pandemic, and that the snow held off until afterward. After losing so many things, it is nice to see the senior class be able to enjoy some high school traditions. I hope the students and the adult support got to have a great time. They also got to make some changes. Not only did they have to coordinate an additional accessory, a face mask, they also got to nominate and elect a same-sex couple to run for prom court. A lovely picture was taken Saturday night and shared on social media, and that's when the problem started. There was a lot of backlash over the announcement of them as king and queen. Not from students, but from other adults. Specifically, there are objections to someone assumed to be female named a king. I say assumed because nothing in the king's announcement indicated her gender, as there was no reason to. Given what I've seen people close to them have said, I'll use female references going forward. Others objected to having a same-sex couple on the ballot, saying it was against tradition and or Christian teachings. Others claimed that this robbed male students of the opportunity. Some even claimed that this was a slippery slope to, quote, boys pretending to be girls, invading female spaces and opportunities. Some of it got absolutely nasty, even to the point of escalating to threats to students across the school district, not just at the high school. Before I go into these objections, I want to take a moment to commend King's high schoolers for making that change. As someone pansexual myself, and having known I wasn't straight since I was 16, I remember being scared to even ask someone of my assumed gender back then to go to prom as a real date. Another classmate used my extra ticket. I remember being too afraid to squash rumors of the principal barring same-sex couples from buying dance tickets, even though I was the committee co-chair for the ticket purchases, and the principal was afraid to even write back or talk to me about other school issues. I remember holding off and coming out to my parents until college, when I could live in the dorms in safety should my parents kick me out or get violent. Straight and cisgender allies, thank you. We need you to keep uplifting our voices and supporting positive change in the world. Miss Weiss, Miss Loudermilk, and other LGBTQIAP plus students who are out and supported by family, I hope you count your blessings every day, and I wish my family of origin was the same. LGBTQIAP students who are afraid to come out or are unsupported by family, I hope you are loved, and many members of the King's community have your back, even when your family fails to love. To go deeper into the objections, some people posted screenshots of the dictionary definitions for the term king. For one, there are 8 different definitions for king in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Only one of those objections was cited, or one of those definitions was cited in the objections. Quote, a male monarch over a territorial unit, and only partly so. While I have not asked Mr. Leiss or Mr. Ackerman, I don't think prom king is a word a territorial unit to rule. So I challenged those who are so committed to that one definition to help the school district find a way to make that happen before griping about the lack of a male gender in prom king. Or go protest at places like Graceland or Neverland Ranch. Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson didn't have territories either, but they've been considered kings as well. Or you could just accept that Miss Weiss was selected as, quote unquote, a paramount chief, or one who holds a preeminent position. 2 other definitions of king. And she did so with consent, understanding of the situation, as supplies like additional queen sash would be hard to find at the last minute. And she did so with grace. Language evolves too. Could you imagine our founding fathers greeting each other, "What's up?" outside of Hamilton? How often do you use the term horseless carriage instead of car? Language evolution certainly can involve the term king, which, on a side note, has been used to refer to female monarchs like King Tamar of Georgia or Queen Mary of Hungary. Second, the one nice thing about traditions is they have room to adapt and have done so for centuries, millennia even. Christmas trees were once decorated with lit candles wired on the trees. And then apples, nuts, popcorn, and cookies were added. Now electric lights, glass, metal, and plastic figurines, artificial tinsel now adorn them. While marrying a partner is a tradition several millennia old, white wedding dresses and elaborate reception dinners by common folk aren't even a 200-year-old tradition. Fashion and food trends change slowly over time. At your next Thanksgiving meal, try a 15th century pumpkin pie next to the pumpkin pie you normally have. You'll notice a difference. Why do traditions change? To adapt to the needs and values of those at the celebration. Same-sex relationships and non-straight sexuality is being increasingly more and more accepted by students at schools and by society in general. More students are coming out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, polysexual, and many more other terms about their attractions to peers that don't mean heterosexual. Students are taking and valuing inclusion more and more. As a result, more schools are re-examining their definitions and allowing students to have influence over their school environment in safe ways. And that includes allowing non-straight students to run for prom court, and to do so by voting their values, i.e., what qualities they think is important in representing their class. Many professional and scientific organizations cite that a non-straight sexual orientation is not an illness or disease or something to be corrected. Rather, the problems lie with the hatred and ignorance about it. If these organizations and their analysis of research is good enough for King schools and families to make decisions about other aspects of education, then their analyses here are certainly valid. Society has come a long way, and this is a change in tradition I'm in favor of. The agenda being pushed that evening was to allow students to have a fun and safe time with their fellow classmates. That is what King's High School set out to do, and from what I've heard, that's exactly what they did. Contrary to what some believe, students don't have prom or court or values to appease the masses. They do so for their own development and benefit. These seniors are growing up to be adults. Let's treat their results not only when it's just convenient or pleasing to us. Instead, let's validate their opinions, especially when you can do so in minor and safe ways. In regards to this being against Christian teachings, I have a few bits of information for you. 1, there are many accepting denominations and groups of Christianity that do support non-straight people, and there are biblical scholars who make valid arguments that saying that the Bible is not necessarily against non-straight relationships. 2, while we do support St. Margaret of York in some ways, King's Local Schools is a secular school district, and we are lucky to have many faiths represented in our school community. Jewish, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, pagan, Unitarian Universalist, Hindu, Buddhist, as well as many different variations of Christianity. There's no reason why a secular school should uphold one particular flavor of one faith up to a higher regard. That debate is more appropriate for a private religious school, an option afforded by many in the greater Cincinnati area. To note, boys were not barred from the opportunity. Several male students were on the ballot for prom king, and which is, to be nominated something in and of itself. Students were given equal opportunities to vote for them instead, and chose not to. Even if a male student did win prom king, what about all the other male students? Would they be just as violated? Or is this more about not liking the rules that the students and staff set for their own celebration? Again, made for the students, not for the adults. For those who express displeasure about the boys being excluded, if you wouldn't go to a birthday party uninvited and have a tantrum over not liking the birthday cake the host and guest of honor picked out, or crash a wedding and loudly complain about the bridal bouquets, I challenge you to stop and rethink your behavior. Why are you trying to spoil the celebration of these students who had a very difficult 13 months, more so than the average student body of other years? The final objection around transgender girls in girl-only spaces and taking girl-only opportunities, I will save that for another time. But spoiler alert, transgender people are already part of the King's community. as students, as volunteers, as potential staff. Transgender students are in the classrooms, in the restrooms, on sports teams, in clubs, in the arts, on the buses, participating in camps and trips, as the gender they are, not the sex assigned at birth. And they don't do any of the bad things that somebody accused them of doing because of being trans. In fact, they do great things for the King's School District. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there's no logical reason why we should fear support of these students. It would be a great disservice to say that everything is perfect in terms of GBLT plus rights in the King's School District. If you have not read the 2020 GLSEN School Climate Survey, I recommend you do so. The statistics are improving, but they are far from ideal. 56% of GBLT students that are in schools with gay, straight, trans alliances feel that they belong in school. GBLT students of color are more likely to receive racial harassment, even though overall racial harassment in schools is declining. 86% of GBLT plus students are reported being assaulted at school at one point or another. They also face unsafe homes and homelessness. 20% of homeless students are GBLT plus. These statistics don't necessarily include students with same-sex parents or family members. If elected, I would encourage more representation of non-straight people in our schools, including in our sexual education and history, more inclusivity to non-straight family members and their students, and more resources for allies to support these students and families. I'm for all students, all families, and all of Kings.